Changes at the Capitol as we move closer to election season. We know the top Republicans on the ballot, but it's not clear which Democrats will take on the biggest statewide races.
My only guiding principle, my North Star, is what can I do now for my country at its moment of truth.
We go in depth with Beto O'Rourke, what he's saying about how his plans mesh with other top Democrats aiming to run in 2026. Governor Abbott calls lawmakers back for a special session. He's looking for regulations on THC in Texas, but the lieutenant governor still wants a full ban.
I'm not going to legalize marijuana in Texas. And if people want to vote me out of office for that, so be it. Not going to do it.
We look at the conflict to come and what hemp advocates are pushing for when lawmakers return to the Capitol. The controller is about to become the chancellor. We speak one-on-one with Glenn Hagar, how his vision for Texas A&M could bring big changes to the state.
Produced from the Capitol in Austin and airing statewide, this is the award-winning State of Texas.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Josh Hinkle. Texas lawmakers have more work to do with a special session just weeks away. But campaign season is also looming, and we're already seeing some big changes coming at the Capitol. Among them, East Texas Senator Robert Nichols announced he will not run for re-election. The Republican has served in the Senate since 2007. Nichols is known for occasionally breaking with fellow Republicans on votes, a rarity in the Senate. For example, he was one of only 2 Republicans who voted to convict Attorney General Ken Paxton during his impeachment trial. Nichols will serve the remainder of his term, which ends in January. Immediately after Nichols announced his retirement, State Representative Trent Ashby announced he would run for the seat. The Lufkin Republican was first elected to the House in 2012. Last week, we told you about another departure from the Texas Senate. Tarrant County Republican Kelly Hancock resigned from his seat. The move sets the stage for Hancock to serve as interim state controller. But another state senator may have had the biggest campaign announcement of the week. Houston Republican Joan Huffman announced she will run for Texas Attorney General. Huffman is a former state prosecutor who also served as a district court judge. This session, she was the Senate Finance Chair and also served on the Senate Criminal Justice Committee. Huffman will face fellow State Senator Mays Middleton in next year's Republican primary. Middleton announced his campaign back in April. The Galveston Republican pledged to fund his campaign with $10 million of his own money. A third Republican running in the AG primary is Aaron Reitz, who recently left a role serving in the U.S. Justice Department. Current Attorney General Ken Paxton is not running for re-election. Instead, he's campaigning for the U.S. Senate seat currently held by John Cornyn. New polling suggests that neither candidate is popular with voters. The Texas Politics Project at UT polled 1,200 registered voters between June 6th and June 16th. 29% of voters had a favorable opinion of Paxton, while 43% in the poll view him unfavorably. Cornyn's numbers were lower, with just 23% saying they had a favorable opinion of the senator. 46% gave Cornyn an unfavorable number. Poll numbers like that are raising hopes for Texas Democrats, but it's not clear who will be on the ballot for next year's primary. One Texan a lot of folks are watching is former Congressman Beto O'Rourke. He spoke one-on-one with politics reporter Adam Schwager about town hall events he's holding around the state and if that could lead to a statewide campaign.
You've been doing town halls across the state, and let's just get the elephant out of the room here. Town hall is usually something that someone does when they're looking to run for office. Are you looking at another statewide office in 2026?
I'm trying to be as helpful and as useful as I can to the people of Texas right now. Folks are going through a lot. You've got proposed Medicaid cuts that are going to hit people who are already living in the least insured state in the country. So it's harder to see a doctor or to get medication or to be healthy and well enough to do your job or finish school in Texas than it is anywhere else. We're home to tens of thousands of veterans. There are 83,000 positions slated to be cut at the VA. And then Texans understandably are concerned about the attacks on the Constitution, on the rule of law, on the right to vote, and our democracy. So the moment calls for us to be out there now, not waiting to run for office or to be a candidate or run a campaign or for 2026, but right now. And that's why we're holding these town halls all over the state, everywhere. In San Antonio tonight, Laredo tomorrow, Tyler and Beaumont after that. If it makes sense to be a candidate, to continue that work in that way, I will. If not, then I won't. My only guiding principle, my North Star, is what can I do now for my country at its moment of truth? And so doing these town halls, running Powered by People, which is registering tens of thousands of new voters and helping them get to the ballot box. That's the work that makes sense. If that includes being a candidate at some point, well, I'm open to that.
So you mentioned some of those cities that you're hosting these town halls, and some of them in very red areas of the state. What appeals you to going to those areas and trying to reach out to those voters?
I think part of the problem with our country right now, so polarized and so divided, is that we've kind of stayed in our own corners. Democrats will be in Austin or San Antonio or Dallas or Houston, but when we don't go to Amarillo or Wichita Falls or Humble, Texas, we're basically telling voters there that they do not matter to us. And so I make a point of going to those places that have been written off by Democrats and taken for granted by Republicans and left effectively unrepresented to listen and hear people. When we were in Amarillo, for example, front row of our town hall are a couple of guys wearing Make America Great Again hats. I wonder, are you here to protest? Are you going to disrupt this event? They were there to listen and to hear what their fellow Texans and Americans were saying right now. And often throughout the course of that town hall, I saw them nodding their heads because folks are hurt right now. These tariffs are creating incredible uncertainty for growers and ranchers and farmers in North Texas. The inability for people to come to this country legally, safely, and in an orderly manner to work jobs that employers and farmers and ranchers are unable to fill, that's hurting folks regardless of whether they're Republican or Democrat, whether they live in a big city or a rural county. So showing up for everyone, fighting for everybody, that is what we should do right now. And I also think it is the path to power for Democrats if we're serious about winning.
I know that 2026 issue, you're waiting to see how it plays out. There was a Dallas Morning News report came out yesterday that said you've been talking with State Representative Tallarico, Representative Castro, former Representative Allred about the path forward for 2026. What were those conversations like?
It's a recognition that in Colin Allred and Joaquin Castro, James Tallarico, Jasmine Crockett, Ron Nirenberg, we have an embarrassment of talent in this state. We don't lack for Democrats who can run powerful, strong, statewide races. My concern is making sure that everyone is in the right position. If you have everybody clustered in a Senate primary, for example, well then who's going to run for governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general? Furthermore, we need strong candidates running for every congressional, every state house position across the state. Ronnie Jackson, whose congressional district includes Wichita Falls, Amarillo, and Denton, did not have a Democratic contender in 2024. That means that when Colin Allred was running for Senate, there was no one in those communities sending votes up the ballot to help him against Ted Cruz. So we need Democrats, strong Democrats, at every position on the ballot, statewide and then down ballot. So I'm hopeful that that can be resolved and that those people that I just mentioned and many more will all find that right place on the ballot, and that we will be able to present a united front to the people of Texas.
We have more from our interview with O'Rourke online now, including his thoughts on the pressure to draw new Republican-friendly congressional districts in the state and what he thinks the media gets wrong about Texas. You can see the full interview linked in this week's State of Texas story on our website. Tension between the governor and lieutenant governor over THC.
What kind of culture do we want? Do we want everybody high? Everywhere you go, it smells like grass. It's awful. I don't want that for Texas.
Governor Abbott calls a special session looking for ways to regulate THC, but Dan Patrick does not seem ready to compromise. Plus, Texas A&M is about to get a new leader. We go one-on-one with Glenn Hager about the challenge ahead and the critical job he's leaving behind.